Sir, we shall wait for a few minutes. Let them join participants.
I'm good with that, ma'am.
Sir? Sir Doshi, sir? Shall we wait for 5 minutes, sir?
Yeah. You can wait.
Okay, sir. Very good morning, one and all. Sir, Kirti, Assistant Professor, Department of Pharmacology, on behalf of Department of Pharmacology, Radhala College of Pharmacy, Mysuru, I take this privilege to warmly welcome you all for today's webinar on local herbal, Evergreen herbal solutions to combat infections. It's my pleasure to welcome today's speaker, Dr. Suresh Kumar, Professor and Research Director, Coordinator, TIFACO Herbal Drugs, JSSCP of Pharmacy, the Kandala, Nigiri, Tamil Nadu. I also welcome our beloved principal, Dr. Hanna Charushi, Radha College of Pharmacy, Mysuru. On this occasion, Sardhavilas Educational Institutions dated back to 1811. It had a glorious beginning with its founder, the illustrious Rao Bahadur Bakshi Narasappa, starting these institutions in Mysore city. The pharmacy wing was started in the year 1992 with Diploma in Pharmacy course. Later, in 2004, Bachelor of Pharmacy was added. PharmD was inaugurated by former President of India, Dr. APJ Abdul Kalam, in the year 2012 with fully commitment to promote highest professional and ethical standards of pharmacy to cater the needs of pharmacy education in the country. In the beginning of December 2019, a novel coronavirus disease, COVID-19, also referred to as the SARS-CoV2, has caused an international outbreak of acute respiratory illness. The rapid spread of COVID-19 was characterized as a pandemic by the World Health Organization in March 2020. This pandemic has affected at least 177 countries. Currently, There are no specific therapeutic agent for this disease, which brought the name. In the past, herbal medicines has played an important role in controlling infectious disease. Clinical evidences from a range of studies of herbal medicine in the treatment of SARS coronavirus has shown significant results and supported the idea that herbal medicines has a beneficial effect in the treatment and prevention of epidemic diseases. A Cochrane systemic review reported that the herbal medicine combined with the Western medicine may improve the symptoms and quality of life in SARS-CoV patients. As per our Prime Minister's declaration, Vocal for Local, we are promoting local herbal drugs to combat wide range of infections. Now, I take this opportunity to introduce today's speaker, Dr. Suresh K. Mohan Kumar. Dr. Suresh K. Mohan Kumar is an academician and research scientist specialized in the metabolic pharmacology. His extensive education and experience for more than 17 years with various models of pharmacy education and research from different countries like India, Canada, United Kingdom, and Malaysia positively supports his passion towards promoting and advancing pharmaceutical science education and research. Sir has received his Bachelor of Pharmacy in April 1998 from Dr. MGR Medical University, Tamil Nadu, India. He has been awarded Master of Pharmacy in April 2000 from Dr. MGR Medical University. Sir has received the PhD in Physiology and Pharmacology in October 2008 from University of New England, Australia. He has received his postgraduate certificate in higher education in the University of Nottingham in United Kingdom in July 2017. He has received Top New Investigator Award from International Society of Canada. Sir has received the Best Lecture Award in 2015 and he has received a Most Caring and Compassionate Lecture Award in 2016 from Biomedical Society Malaysia for his excellence in teaching. Sir has 8 years of teaching experience in pharmaceutical science and pharmacology in UK and Indian pharmacy curriculum and 17 years of experience in the field of drug discovery and molecular pharmacology. Currently, Sir is a professor and research director, coordinator, TIFAC for Herbal Drugs, and coordinating research activities of JSS College of Pharmacy, Ooty. We are happy to have you in this session, sir. Now, I request our beloved principal, sir, for opening remarks. Over to you, sir.
Hello.
Yes, sir, we are audible.
Now, I request our principal, sir, for opening remarks.
So I would request everyone to kindly mute their mic so that I am clearly audible. Well, good morning, everyone, and sorry for the little technical snag, Professor Suresh. See, this is really a good topic on which Professor Suresh is going to speak, because especially in the present pandemic, there are so many drugs are being heard. Right, it can be the starting with an anti-malarial, which is a repurposed drug, or any other drugs. But the herbals are always the best. It is time tested, it is traditional also, and since centuries it is being used. So we are highly thankful to Professor Suresh for accepting our invitation. And without spending much time, because he's the expert, he'll be speaking for almost maybe next half an hour, 40 minutes. So we are highly thankful. And I also appreciate the work of Ms. Kirti and as well as Professor Dinesh in organizing this webinar. I am hopeful that all will get a good information from this, and they will try to emulate in their day-to-day life. Thank you everyone. ನಿಮ್ಮ mic on ಮಾಡ್ಕೊಳ್ಳಿ. Please switch on your mic, Kirti.
Yes, sir, it's on. Thank you, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah, go ahead.
Without further ado, now I request our speaker of this webinar. Over to you, sir.
Yeah, thank you very much, and good morning, everyone. Thank you, Principal Sardar Vilas College of Pharmacy, for introducing me or inviting me to for this valuable session. So I try to keep this very informative, and I tried my best to keep this very informative. So I fulfill your expectations, sir. Thank you, Dr. Dinesh, sir, and Dr. Kirti for coordinating this for the last couple of days. I hope I try my best again, once again, to make these presentations fruitful and informative. So just let me share my slide. Is my slides visible to everyone? Hello?
Yes,
Am I
sir,
audible?
visible.
Okay, am I audible and visible to everyone, right? Thanks,
Yes, sir.
Kitty. Yeah, all right. So very good morning to all the participants attending today. And once again, I sincerely thank the Sardar Vilas College of Pharmacy Management and the principal and the team members for inviting me to deliberate the timely topic for next 30 to 40 minutes or so. So as Dr. Kirti kindly mentioned that my background is on the metabolic pharmacology and molecular pharmacology. So I try my best to be informative in the sections of infectious diseases. I have not worked a lot in this field, but I try my best to brief you and then give you some take-home messages. So again, the whole initiative was followed by the Prime Minister Modi ji's initiative that we need to be vocal for local, and the same motto I'm trying to pitch this. We need to promote more local herbals for the consumption, and again to fight and combat the infectious diseases, including the current situation, COVID. So before I start and go further in my presentations. So here is a disclosure statement that I wanted to make. Today's presentation is all about my learning and understanding and the literature. It is nothing to do with my JSS institution or JSS Academy of Higher Education Research, which I'm affiliated with, and also JSS College of Pharmacy, Ooty. So it is not at all associated with any of the professional associations, including Sardar Vilas College of Pharmacy. So, and in the next 30-40 minutes, you're going to have some slides and data and illustrations which I've taken from the social media, and also I've taken from the appropriate literature. I've tried my best to cite all the literature that I have taken from the social media and also from the literatures. But if I missed anything, and it is not of any intentions, I don't have any conflict of interest with any organizations. I disclose that very strongly. So in the next 30-40 minutes, what you're going to listen from me, so I'm going to briefly introduce what is infection and what is the current epidemiology, why infectious diseases needs to be taken care, and then what is the role of herbals in terms of taking the infectious diseases. I'm going to take a current example, COVID-19 as a pathological condition, and then how the herbals can be a cure for, or maybe the treatment options for treating COVID-19 by discussing various drug targets of COVID-19. And I will slowly take into it and why the herbal research having some challenges in terms of delivering the outcomes, in terms of the products, in terms of reaching to the community, and then what could be done to take this further into society benefiting innovations or healthcare solutions. And I will also end up with this, what is the scope of pharmacognosy, what is the scope of herbal in terms of future pharmaceuticals or cosmeceuticals or nutraceuticals market. All right, so let's start with the infection. And if you look at what causes the most the death and what diseases that exactly causes the death in the world, the cardiovascular diseases stands the lead in the table, and then these cardiovascular diseases, they are non-communicable diseases, so they also include number of comorbid conditions, so metabolic diseases, as including diabetes, hypertension, it's like impaired lipid metabolism, and all these things could be added together, and then that leads to cardiovascular diseases. Cancer is the second leading cause of the mortality in terms of the non-communicable diseases. But what's more worrying is infectious diseases. The amount of mortality that is caused by the infectious diseases is 26%, next to cardiovascular disease. More than the mortality rate, if you look at the quality of life with the infections or even severe, as for some patients it's an acute conditions, there are a number of chronic complications associated with the infectious diseases as well. So if I further break this down, you can see tuberculosis, malaria, HIV, AIDS, and diarrheal diseases, they were the major contributors in the infectious diseases. However, the respiratory infection still stands the higher proportion within the infectious diseases. So the respiratory conditions, any associated immunological or infectious diseases associated with the respiratory infections have more deadlier than the any other of these conditions. So respiratory infection is one of the major issue that we need to be addressing. So let me start with a brief introduction of the infection. Again, and as I've been told that the target audience is a mixed population of the students and the staff, and I think this is for the benefit of the students attending. So I just wanted to give you the background, what is called infection. So infection is nothing but any foreign organisms that is invade in the human body or animal body, and then take some time to incubate and then produce some clinical and pathological symptoms. In most of these circumstances, when the foreign organisms like bacteria, viral, parasite, and fungal, when they get into the body, there are a number of defensive mechanisms within the body, like an immune system, try to fight against those invasions of foreign organisms and try to bring you to some kind of immunity level, so that the same pathogen, even if you are exposed, the conditions may not be detrimental, or even you will go asymptomatic because you have developed an immunity within yourself. So the major target of these infectious agents includes this number of cell types. You can see the epithelial cells, they are the one they first encounter any environmental organisms. You all know that your nasal, pharyngeal, and the respiratory tract, all are layered by the epithelial cells, and they are the first exposed to the any foreign or infectious materials. And then your T cells, B cells, the neutrophils and eosinophils, they're all kind of a defensive mechanism, and then the immune cell responses. And then if you develop any infections, then your macrophages, dendritic cells, and fibroblasts all come into a play role. So there are two possibilities when you go for the inflammations. Again, the inflammation is needed for your body to fight against those infections, but sometimes it becomes an effective fight, but most the rarely, or even some majority of these cases, whatever we have seen in the earlier infectious categories, it will go ineffective. So it will lead to chronic inflammation and fibrosis that leads to detrimental clinical symptoms. So this is what happens, and this is what happens even with the COVID-19 situation. But in the infectious diseases world, one should always understand what is the chain of infection. So you all know, even in the current situations, why you have been encouraged to stay distance and from the other individuals is to prevent the transmission, because the human is the heavy reservoir for any infection. So these germs, these agents like bacteria, virus, and parasites, they can get into the human system. First, it uses as a reservoir, so where it can replicate and multiply. So these reservoirs also includes the human or people, or it could be any wildlife or domestic animals, or it even could be a food and the waste material. So that these could be the reservoirs. And then how the germs get out from these reservoirs, again through the hygiene practices, through the toilet, and if any the droplet migrations via mouth and sneezing. So all those ways that the germs in the reservoirs cannot get out and then reach to the another person. So it can get around. So the viral particle can stay in any material for a longer period of the time in the surface for the some a period of time, depending on the type of the virus. So, and if someone else touches that, then the virus can spread through that transmission. So it get around very easily. And again, so it can get inside, and it's called acquisition to from the reservoir to some other person. So you have now transmitted the virus particle or bacteria from one person to another person, and then it makes the person sick. This is how the viral or any germs get transmitted. This chain of infection, it's going to be a continuous path. So it will go on and go on. See, one of the effective strategy that we are all trying to do is to minimize this transmission, so that you have taken your personal hygiene care, and also you are taking care of your personal protections, wearing appropriate PPE, social distancing, lockdown. All those exercises that we are doing is to not to kill the viruses. In a way, you can kill the viruses, but minimizing the transmission of those the viruses. So this is just a brief introduction of what is infection, how the infection can acquire, and then how it is transmitted from one reservoir to another reservoir. But since the students are attending, and these are the words that we frequently using now in the current scenarios, and they should have some good understanding what they are. So I would like to start with the individual definition of these four main terminologies used to describe what is the status of the situation of any infectious diseases. So it is normally starts with an outbreak. So if suddenly some infectious diseases happens in a particular location, in a particular time, then it is normally referred as an outbreak happen in that region. But what happens is slowly this outbreak starts spreading to the other geographical area. So the same incidences started happening in multiple geographic locations. Then it is slowly getting endemic. So this endemic is somehow different than the epidemic. So they are individual spikes. So they normally happens. It's like an influenza. So normally a seasonal flu. Every time when there is a season changes, people get influenza or seasonal. They are called all endemic infections because they normally spike, but after some times it goes down, and it happens throughout the world, different time points and the different geographical locations. Then we call them an endemic. But what happens is when this endemic becomes very rapid. So the transmission, acquisition and transmission of these infectious diseases spreads very endemically, very epidemically to many different geographical location. Within a very shorter period, the multiplication and the replication of the cases go increased exponential growth. So it starts with very stagnant growth, but if you see the curve, there's a sudden jump in the cases. So 1,000 cases in a week, and immediately within the 2 weeks, you would say 10,000 cases, lakh cases. So there's exponential growth happen in the community, and it is uncontrollable. And in that case, you would call them an epidemic. So what is pandemic? Pandemic is nothing but an epidemic. It is also similar to epidemic, but now this happens throughout the world. And then it has covered a maximum region. There are a lot of people are going through such infectious condition. Then you can call them as pandemic. So now you can see COVID-19. Initially, it was declared as an epidemic, and I'm sure it has already reached a pandemic situation. All right. So on your left over here. I would like to show, is this the only pandemic that we are facing in the COVID-19? No, if you look at the history, we have seen many different episodes of a pandemic situation. So, and again, this is dates back. So one of the major pandemic that caused significant death is the Black Death, bubonic plague. So I think in the early 13th century, this happened. The entire Europe got affected. So that there were many deaths. I think 200 million deaths happened due to this, due to this infections. And actually, this infections originally spread from the rat, and then it carried via the fly and then to the human, and then it got spreaded very quickly from human to human, and then it took the major lives. So followed by this, and there were a number of other episodes as well. I'm sure the younger generations may not aware of the Spanish flu, even the smallpox. I think they were also pretty decent in terms of the taking lives, and I'm sure it's pandemic. So I think, but there was an approach. Hello, am I okay? Am I audible?
Yes, sir, you're audible.
Can I proceed, right? So what you see is HIV. Following HIV, there were many other episodes, and then right now what we are working on is COVID. So relatively, the death rate to the COVID infection is very, very less. So that is the only hope right now, because the mortality rate is slightly around 2 to 4% in India. So it was well managed by an appropriate measures. But if you ask, this is going to be this is going to be the end, but we are not sure. So there's a epidemiologist strongly suggests there's going to be a strong wave as well. And so my intention is not to scare anybody, but still say that this is not the over yet. Introduction, slight details about the pandemic situations, but there are a lot of conspiracy theories that we have been hearing, how this the COVID situation has come up, and you all hearing this as the blame game between the USA and China and other countries. Nevertheless, I admire of this particular paper. So this paper was published in the 2004. So in that paper, what was interesting is they classified two different cases. One is the re-emerging diseases. So they were the pandemic or epidemic, they were existing. So they were kind of cautioning to the world, these epidemic situations may come back again to these nations. So what you see here in the blue dots or the epidemic situations, they were already there. So there is also risk. So there's a possible mutations, maybe new strains of those same infectious diseases. There is a possibility of reoccurrence or re-emerging as an condition, infectious condition. So they were warning for that throughout the globe. But more interestingly, what you see in the red dots over here, they were the newly emerging conditions. So if you notice one, the SARS-CoV2 influenza, so they have been predicted early in the 2004 because there was a case of SARS year and the 2003 itself. So in that particular situation, so this particular paper say so these are the potential countries they may encounter the SARS. So SARS is severe acute respiratory syndrome. So we have a number 2 strains now. This is a earlier strains, so very less lethal, and somehow we managed with those situations. But they were kind of warning sign even in the 2004 that this virus is coming, and then the current pandemic that we are facing is emerged. Maybe it is appropriately predicted even in the 2004. That's what I say. If you look at even this was the data from the 2017, so they predicted, although we underestimate the cost associated with the current situation of COVID. In the 2017, they predicted how much, around $60 billion it costs the world per year to manage the epidemic. So it is a very costly affair. And if you look at the current situation, it could have been even worse. And I'm sure the aftermath effect of the SARS-CoV is going to be even worse. The economy is going to be very, very struggle. But still, the countries need to spend money to protect the people, to keep them health and safe. So, and you can imagine what would be the cost of taking care of these infectious diseases and epidemics currently. I would like to go on to the current situation straight away. You can look. This is a nice summary that what happened in terms of the COVID pandemic, and I'm sure most of you are well aware of this situation. The whole the track, how the pathology, how this particular condition is progressed. But still, if any students are not familiar, so my target is to improve their understanding what is going on and how this has happened. So you all know that this is the still we don't know whether this is from the bat or pangolin meat consumption in the market, whether this is the disease spread started from air, but there is a theory. Still, this needs to be proved. But nevertheless, they have started doing the safety measurements and regulating those markets, particularly those wildlife markets, so that they can prevent any viral infections. Because these viruses, these animals may have some unique species of virus, and then once it get into the human, and then it will become a lethal virus. That's what it happened. So it started from Wuhan, you all know, and then during the December, we have been hearing the story that a lot of deaths happening in China, and then slowly the Italy started showing the death rate, and we were quite working on our strategies and how to avoid such a condition. But nevertheless, the virus was here through the different modes of transport. It reached India and it started multiplying, and even not only India, it reached to many other places. In February, this is the data, but even now in July and August, the data continue to exponentially rise. So this is the scenario there. So now I'll slowly take into you the pathogenesis, how this infection happens. So what you see in the picture is this is specific to the SARS-CoV infections, coronavirus 2 infections. So if you look at it, this is the virus particle. So, and once it approaches the host cells, so the host cells could be your endothelial cells, epithelial cell, and then the immune responses. So what happens is, this is the overall mechanism. So I want you to focus where the laser pointer is. So this is the host cells. You for example, it is an epithelial cells. As I told you, epithelial cells are the one first phase these viral particles or these foreign materials. So there are the number of the transporters or receptors are available in the membrane. See, one of the receptors or one of the enzymes that is located in the membrane, ACE2, CCR5, and DPP4. So, right now hypothesized for the viral particle attach to these receptor and get endocytosis. So these are the targets for the viral particle to get inside the cells. This is how the viral particle get into the cells. So the endocytosis is the process. Once this viral particle binds to the ACE2 and these membrane receptors, these receptors go through the endocytosis process, get inside the cells, and then there is a first step is viral uncoating happens. So all the clarithrine coated membranes gets uncoated, and then it releases the virion. So when the viral particles uncoats, there is a protease enzymes comes in, and the protease cleaves this virion and then releases the RNA. So once those RNA get into the ribosomes, again it goes through any new synthesis protein synthesis process. What happens is your transition and translation happens on the replications, and then it becomes a new viral particles. So one virion lead to 6 virion new viral particles, and then they're released. So this is a cycle. So these replication of the virion in the host cells again influence the immune response. Again, this could happen where parallelly. Sometimes it could be the consequence, or maybe upon the exposure, these immune cell response can be stimulated. This immune cell response, what happens is it will try to stimulate the program, the cell does, but slowly this virion start to regulate the immune cell response, and then consequently lead to the inflammation in both endothelial cells and all other neighboring cells, particularly in the bronchial, in the lungs, and that causes the severe pneumonia, and that's known as the severe acute respiratory syndrome. So this is a brief pathogenesis of virion particles. So if you couldn't follow me in this particular slide, I also try to explain with a very simple model published in Science. And so once again, if you're students, please pay attention, because if you are trying to come up with any new drug, these are the targets right now. Whole world is looking into it. All right. So remember, I'm not talking anything about the vaccines or biologicals. I'm talking about the pharmacological drug targets. So once again, so this is the host cells. This is an environment. This is a viral particle. So these viral particle binds to ACE receptor. So this TMPRSS2 is the priming protein. It helps to prime this the binding of ACE2 and SARS-CoV. So once this binds, there's an endocytosis takes place, and then endosomes get into that. There is uncoating, and the protease causes the cleavage of this endosome, and thus upon this uncoating, there is a new viral mRNA is released. This genomic RNA, and then further go through the replication process. Again, here there is another target that the drugs could be targeted, which is called RNA-dependent RNA polymerase. So this enzyme plays an important role to stimulate the transcription and translation process, and then further this the whole protein again once again packaged as an endosome in the Golgi apparatus and then released as an exocytosis process. So this is a whole process of how viral gets into the host cells and how it multiplies and how it is released into the environment, into the systemic circulation. But so far, I was just trying to provide the base for the herbal solution. So now, since this is a situation, majority of the conventional pharmacological treatment that we are trying, and also the biological and vaccines that we are trying, still we are not successful in terms of coming up with a therapeutic option to combat SARS-CoV infection. So right now the situation is like this. We largely dependent on the preventing by appropriate personal protection measures, but the goal is to remove this coronavirus throughout the nations, including India is very keen in that direction. So this is where I wanted to start my presentation. So my presentation is all about how the healthcare to combat COVID-19 or even any other complications, how herbals could play a larger role. So as all of you know very well, whatever we are talking about herbal, this is not something new. This is not the modern medicines. Our ancient traditional systems, whatever you name it, whether it is Ayush, or whether it is Ayurveda, whether it is homeopathy, whether it is a Siddha, whether it is Unani, all these traditional medicinal practices strongly emphasize the usage of these plant-based medicines. And all these formulations or monotherapies or polyherbal therapies, they include any of these or even the other plant-based medicines. Their approach or the traditional approaches of the therapy may differ, but all these therapies included the plant-based herbals. So it's not only India. If you go to the other countries, for example, if you go to Africa, again, it is believed as a magical remedies. These are the shaman or the traditional medicinal healers. They are still there. So they believe in usage of herbals and then traditional medicines to combat the any particular situations. For example, the primary care in Africa or even India, if you take it, people largely depend on the herbals, not necessarily the modern medicines. And if you take, for example, in Africa, the ratio of one traditional medicinal healer is for 500 people, whereas a modern medicine person, the ratio is 1:40,000. So imagine, so the biggest population in Africa largely still depend on the traditional medicines and herbals. So if you go to Thailand, if you go to China, they still emphasize, and in fact, I largely look for my inspirations from China, because despite the invasion of the modern medicines, they still strongly maintain the traditional medicinal practices and traditional complementary systems. So, and I'm sure you're all familiar that they believe in yin yang, the in and out. So yin is something, an internal system which is cold, yang is something, an external system which is hot. So they describe that in a very traditionally, and they approach the modern medicine very unique way, which I'm going to show some example in my presentation as well. But let me give you some understanding as for the COVID-19, how herbal could be a solution in terms of treating or managing or giving some symptomatic reliefs in for COVID-19 situation. So there are many different aspects that herbals could be targeted. So either monotherapy or polytherapy, but majority of these claims, they are looking into antivirals, anti-inflammatory, prophylactic-immunoboosters, symptomatic reliefs, and others. There are many other could be a part of the COVID-19 treatment options, but I just, for the time of interest, for also for the benefit of all of us, I just restricted only the major phytochemical targets. So let's start with the antivirals. I think I've already explained how this the viral is get inside and then how it is replicate. So why I'm showing this slide again. So if you talk about antiviral, so these are the targets. If you inhibit any of these process starting from 1 to 9, if you inhibit any of this process, you can call them antiviral. So that is the current goal or current targets are focused for even pharmacological drugs, but that also the same applies for the phytochemicals as well. So I'm showing some of the very recent examples. So this is one of the recent paper published and stating that, see, what are the class of compound that has antiviral properties. So they did some text mining and then based on the in vitro, in vivo, and clinical results, and they tabulated the phytochemicals accordingly. So they show the class of compounds, any compounds with the phenols, which is polyphenols. You all know that polyphenols have always shown a potent effect in many of the diseases, not only this. So they also highlight the phenolics, any compounds containing the polyphenols structure, they would have potential antiviral property. So they also look for alkaloids. So alkaloids showing antiviral properties as well as like that, terpenoids, antivirals. So this is some of the highly even some compounds from organosulfur may have some antiviral activity, but they try to come up with the promising evidence, or in terms of the larger proportion, what type of compounds shown some properties. So if you are a pharmacognosy researcher, if you are a phytochemical researcher, you wanted to start doing research in the phytochemicals. So instead of looking all the compounds or randomly searching, so you can straight away go to alkaloids. So I wanted to look the alkaloid group of compounds and how it is potential as a target of a COVID or antiviral infection. So you can pick any of these targets. If your alkaloid acting on any of this target and inhibiting the new virion synthesis, and then that is your antiviral activity. So this is another recent study. Again, so you can see again polyphenols and some of the flavonoids, the whatever listed over here, it is also coming up again. So it is showing in this particular case, what they've done is they've selected only the two targets. They selected the ACE2, which is the first step, how the viral particle invade inside the cell. So they try to see and check, and then these compounds have shown some possible activity on these targets. Again, they are all in silico study outcomes. This needs to be validated. This needs to be examined in the in vitro and in vivo settings as well. And another recent study, I think this is a very interesting paper. If you're interested in the pharmacognosy or phytochemical research, I strongly recommend this paper. And this paper did it in a very interesting way. What they did is they classified the infection into different categories. So although we know SARS-CoV in human is the current pathology, there are similar viral infections also there in the wildlife or domestic animals. So they have examined, because right now there is a it's not you need to have a specialized facility to examine the screening of your drug against the particular virus, and throughout the country there's not many centers that can do the antiviral studies, particularly for the SARS-CoV, with the limitations, and they try to do this in silico work and then try to propose what class of compounds and what are the specific targets, whether it is targeting the protease, whether it is targeting the RNA-dependent RNA polymerase or any other antiviral targets. And it's very interesting problem. So, and again, once again, so these are the compounds. Again, you can see these compounds are containing the polyphenolic structure, and again supports the previous research finding. Once again, one of the very recent findings as well in this. Again, if you are trying to approach as a COVID-19 research, again, this could be the nice strategy. So in this, as I mentioned earlier, they've picked only the flavonoids. What is the flavonoids can act against one of the targets? So they've selected all the phytochemicals in the flavonoid category, and then they've screened whether in silico by selecting the particular target. So this 3CL-PRO is the protease, M protease target. So if you inhibit the protease so that the virion will not cleave, so it will not release the RNA, so that the new virion will not be produced. That is the whole concept. So the current therapies like chloroquine, azithromycin, all are targeting the EM protease only to prevent the further or replication of the virus. Once again, so they are just screened in the in silico, so they needs to be examined in vitro and in vivo, and also taken to the clinical before it is translated and before it is taken to the bedside. So the next area, the parallel area that the whole development or drug discovery approaches is happening is an anti-inflammatory side, and I mentioned clearly when I was explaining in the pathogenesis or pathophysiology, upon the infection, the immune cell response will be stimulated. Upon the immune cell response, there is a chronic inflammation. There is a cytokine storm. I'm sure you must be hearing in a lot of news articles or a lot of scientific articles now. People are talking about cytokine storm. So that means the overstimulated interleukin levels. This is the reason why people get the short breath or difficulty breath because of the high cytokine storm is happening. So these are the targets like TGF beta, TNF alpha, interleukin 6. So they are the pro-inflammatory cytokines, and so they are a defensive mechanism. The body is trying to defend against the virion. For that, the best defense they can do is by increasing the cytokine levels. So these cytokines will go, and you all know they are pro-inflammatory cytokines. Although the body is trying to defend against the virus, but the level of cytokine can also induce unfavorable or a detrimental effect to the other cells and other cell types, for example in the bronchial cell types, and for that reason you are getting the shortness of breath and respiratory congestions, and the people need to go through the ventilation support and etc. So again, so that's not only inflammations, that chronic inflammation further lead to fibrosis, and that fibrosis also needs to be regulated. So what are the target? I'm just showing one example. I'm not trying to promote the only the curcumin, but this is just one example. There are plenty of other flavonoids, other drugs are currently focused for the anti-inflammatory effect. If you go and look at the literature, you may find thousands and thousands of phytochemicals. They have shown promising anti-inflammatory effect. So my point here, there's a still opportunity for you to come up with a novel flavonoid, or even the repurposing of the older flavonoids, whether they are acting on any of this inflammatory pathway. So if you try to manage the cytokine, the levels, and that could support symptomatically help you to fight against the viral in terms of protecting the other cells. So it's kind of side support or maybe adjuvant therapy is given. One of the major focus right now is this prophylactic and immunobooster approach, and I'm sure everywhere people are talking about how our traditional medicine system is always helped us to keep us very boosted or immunocompetent. So for those students, when we talk about immunity, there are two types of immunity. We call them innate immunity and adaptive immunity. So right now, whatever the vaccines that you are targeting, it is again an adaptive immunity. It will develop. It is artificial. There's also natural way that an adaptive immunity will develop. And again, as I told you, because of this natural adaptive way pathway, what I explained in the first slide of infection will help you to develop the adaptive, so that you have a sufficient antibodies produced, so that infections cannot reoccur again. But more worryingly, what I'm hearing, what I see in the scientific outcomes, the antibodies of COVID-19, they are not very stable. So that means the possibility of the reoccurrence of the same infection for the same individual is a possible. So that is not ruled out. So that is the downside of the particular this virus, and that's the reason there are a lot of interest in and developing and keeping the immunoboosted. Conventionally, boosting is always relied on the herbals and the other nutraceutical supplements. Again, so this is a broad two categories how you can modulate your immunity, and depending on the cases, if you are targeting the infections and cancers, you do need immunostimulations, but for the other diseases, and you need to have some immunosuppressants. Once again, for the COVID-19, it is a very typical paradox. In the COVID-19, a potential drug needs to play a dual role, or maybe a time-sensitive role. It needs to play a role as an immunostimulant. Also, it needs to play as a role as an immunosuppressant, depending on the status of the cytokine level. But maybe that would be of a novel approach is going to evolve in a near future. So the next thing, I wanted to show, for example, is there are a number of phytochemicals. That's super. Sorry about that. There's some background noise. So if you look at the immunoboosting drugs, I can show some classical examples. The immunoboosters are, again, there are a number of examples. You can take it from the drugs that you take it from the household remedies. So again, this is a very nice slide, and how the phytochemicals acting on the specific targets are trying to promote the immunobooster. So for the neem, ginger, and the glycerol licorice, ginseng, and ashwagandha, and all those things, the traditional medicines always used it, and those showing a potential effect in terms of increasing the immunity. So there's still a lot of research needs to be done. We know that these compounds or these phytochemicals or the consumption of these household plants or spices helps to increase your immunity, but we still don't know what is the precise molecular targets of this or active ingredients. There's still a lot of research needs to be done in this front. There are another area. There are a variety of compounds can be used for the symptomatic reliefs. Again, fever is one of the main symptom, and sometimes when you have the cytokine storm, then the possibility of high temperature. So there you can also, instead of using any pharmacological treatments, so the people are now started using some herbal treatment options so that you can regulate the fever, cold, cough, and other breathing issues, and etc. So still as symptomatic relief, herbals could play a larger role, and again there's a potential market for that as well. The last few slides is like the other areas. What is the recent development happens in terms of the traditional medicinal plants to treat the COVID-19 in terms of preventive supports. For example, this particular researcher from USA is developing the medicinal plant incorporated cotton to develop the mask. So this mask has a coating of antiviral medicinal plant, so that when this is taken, so this is you will have an antiviral property. So there is also other similar line of other products as well. So you can see there's natural derived disinfectants, and there are a number of hand sanitizers that is made up of herbal material, and all it's going to be a new normal where there's a lot of product, including the natural material as a personal hygiene product. So you name it, whatever. Already people have started paint, carpets, and many cosmetic products now started including the anti-COVID defending. So, and then also in future there are many other products may come. So if you are a youngsters and if you wanted to come up with the new innovations, and this is an area you can think uniquely to develop how you can incorporate herbal material in terms of protecting, in terms of treating the drugs. And I come across a recent ad just a couple of days ago. There's a cleanser. So if you want, because people are worried how they are going to use the vegetables and fruits, so they are started using the veggie clean. I think probably it's a salt solution packaged in a bottle, but still there is a significant market. So if you come up with any herbal material that can be used as a cleaning or cleansing the vegetables and fruits that you daily take, and it could be an option for the novel product development. So in the last 5 minutes, I just shared some the reason. Despite we see, I've discussed why the conventional herbal research, why the herbal has shown a strong potential, but despite that still have some limitation in terms of translating into the bedside. And I don't want to go into the detail, but because you all know this is the conventional research approach. It starts from the Indian traditional medicinal system, the information from the traditional knowledge, and then people go and get and collect and cultivate or collect that material and do the extraction process, do the phytochemical as well as the biological screening, both in vitro and in vivo, and then take it to the clinical trial. But despite this is the lengthy discovery or lengthy procedure, we have a number of outcome of the conventional herbal research, but now it is not so promising. So why it isn't a success? But if you go and look at the traditional medicinal system, they never recommend monotherapy or a single ingredient for the narrow target. So it is always a polyherbal target. It's always a holistic approach. It's more than one ingredient, they always believed. So the reason for that is like, for example, if you're taking one specific drug, an anti-inflammatory drug, and targeting the inflammation, it's not necessary inflammation in the specific target is the only way that you can improve the whole body response. So the traditional system of medicine believe that there could be a possibility of synergistic action with the many different targets and many different symptoms. So the polyherbal formulation always targeted for the holistic healing, not the target or phenotype targeted or healing. Some example, this Trifala, Trica2, traditional Chinese medicines, they're all very well known for this protective effect for the immunoboosting as well as all the general health. If you walk into the Western world and if you walk into any pharmacy stores, you would find these Ayurvedic formulation in a high proportion than the modern medicine. And they are started adapting as a regular use, but still in India slowly this is missing, or maybe this is vanishing. So this needs to be rescoped. So again, as I told you, how our neighboring country is advancing in terms of incorporating the integrated network system along with the traditional system of medicine. So they propose, and I think they are started practicing the moving from the phenotype-based medicine to the more new generation medicines that well incorporates the system biology, system pharmacology, translational research, and computational technology. They started adapting the techniques that is used for the modern medicines, but without ignoring the traditional knowledge of the traditional system or traditional complementary medicines. I have one quick example for that one. So you can see this is the older system of medicine. I told you in the earlier yin yang treatment options. So now they propose to include the integration with the system pharmacology and system biology. So what is system pharmacology is you give the multiple ingredients. You are not necessarily examining or monitoring the what is the target response. Instead of the target response, you are examining the whole body, what's happening in terms of the all the receptors, so that you can map and come up with the changes. What receptors are upregulated, downregulated, along with the system biology. So upon when the pathology is there, so they're not necessarily measuring one specific hormone. For example, if you have a kidney impairment, so it's not necessary that you should be screened only for the kidney. So rather than you take the whole system biology, you measure all the changes happening in the particular pathology, so that you can get a valuable information that would be networked to find out the precise target that could be used. So that is the methodology explained over here. So here they took this primary immunodeficiency syndrome as the model. So they wanted to examine what are the changes happening, system biological changes, and then what could be the better drug to treat them. So for that, so they used an appropriate positive control, which is a SARS syndrome, which is a somehow similar conditions, but not exactly the same. But they compared with the normal patients. So when you do the networking analysis, they do all the lipidomics, genomics, and gene chip. You will get this the networking map. So using this networking map, you can find out what precisely the molecular changes happen, and then accordingly try to find out what potential drug, either alone or in the combination, can beneficially modulate that particular system. So that is giving an integrated approach. The same thing could be validated by doing the reverse way. So in the reverse way, so you first give the medicine that is very well practiced in the traditional system of medicine, and try to see what is the changes happen. It is a system pharmacology approach, and then find out what are the main targets, and then collect the immune response, and then do the networking again, and then find out which target responses were produced, and then how this is different in the the syndrome conditions. Together, these two provide a valuable options in terms of the treatment strategy. So this is the nicer way of integration of integration of the modern medicines with the traditional system of medicines. There's another example over here. Again, so first you find out the whole database, and then find out what is the potent phytochemicals in that target, and find out what are the various targets that could be responding for this the chemicals. And then one interesting thing that they do over here is help future mapping. So in this, you do the network analysis to find out what are the possible changes happen, and then whether is related to the particular disease that you wanted to treat, and then do the network analysis to come up with a suitable therapy. So I refer, so if you're interested, go and refer this paper. It's a very valuable, very interesting tool for the modern medicine and integration with traditional medicines. This is the same. This is very well known for us, and in Indian traditional system of medicine refers to the reverse pharmacology. Here, the clinical data is given the valuable inputs from the clinical research. So you find out what are the major changes, what are the significant changes happen. In this case, if it is a colon cancer, so you can find out what are the significant targets for the colon cancer. But if you give something to the treatment and what are the treatment options, and then you combine these target sites and then do the networking analysis and find out which drug has acted nicely in the targets, not necessarily to the specific target, but more than one target. And then that information, you go for the experimental validation in the preclinical models and then confirm that particular formula or that particular monotherapy has a beneficial effect. And a very interesting model to work with medicinal plants or phytochemicals. In India, yes, we also do the integrated approach. This is proposed by the Ayush one. We are also doing some reverse pharmacological approach that is listed over here. So this is again one classical example. Right now, the Ayush have a different centers. They collect the database of clinical responses, trying to collect the outcomes as well as the interventions, and trying to interpret and then come up with the new strategy for the treatment. Again, an effective way of integration as well. But what are the downside for doing the integrated approach with the herbal medicine? It's challenging in terms of the herb quality. The quality of the herb differs from the geographical location. There's also high possibility of herb-drug interactions. Although herb, we believe it is safe, but it is not safe because herb contains a number of different molecules, and that molecules can also potentially act with the drugs and provide some possible interaction. So that we cannot control. That is a challenge. Regulation is a big challenge. You cannot do a quality assurance, quality control, and the standardizations becomes a big challenge. Again, pharmacokinetic profiling is a little bit challenging, as well as the pharmacodynamic measures. But nevertheless, whatever the challenges, and I see the many youngsters listening, so these are all not challenges, these are all opportunities. And if you are trying to seek money from the government agencies, they wanted to support money for addressing these challenges rather than you are coming up with a new drug. So always think drug discovery doesn't mean that you should always come up with a new drug. So if you're able to come up with a solution for these problems, you could able to attract a big grant and do a good research and contribute as well. So you can also focus in these areas. So that's all herbal research leading to society impact. I don't know, because it's a very big question right now. The research that we do is we're only focusing on the thesis, conference presentation, publication patterns, and that's it. So we don't worry whether it is really impacting to the society. But a good research has to be deliver some knowledge, and knowledge needs to reach to the society. If it is not reaching, it's not a good research. It will remain as a toilet paper. So that no, you can only you can count on, but nobody's going to be interested. So always try to produce herbal research, try to produce research outcome as a outcome oriented. So as I told you in the beginning, the outcome needs to be in these directions. You shouldn't be focusing more on the global market. So you should start from the local and then you slowly migrate towards the global market because there are significant global the local need than the global need. So you have to be successful in the local in order to reach the global, and that's the where small innovations can reach. This one example, for those youngsters listening, you always believe that research is not something very complex. Innovation is not necessarily complex. Innovation should be, it should benefit to the society. It should be very simple. So, and I'm sure when we had issues in the dengue fever and other epidemic issues, and we always believed, and we didn't have any modern medicines. We believed on the papaya leaf or nilavembu and etc. So there's still a lot of hope, a lot of scope for these herbals. But as I said earlier, all those challenges needs to be addressed. Again, the biggest revenue that comes out of the Hajmola drives the research and development section of Dabur. So you will be surprised to hear that. So the revenue here is higher than any other product. Revenue of Hajmola and Chyawanprash is more than their anti-cancer drugs and any other drugs. So always believe in simple. So if you come up with any simple innovations, you can reach market better and also profited. So there is really a strong hope in terms of the phytochemical markets. As you can see, if you look at the current CAGR, I think around the current GDP is around 5.7%. Out of that GDP, the majority of the proportion, around 12%, is contributed by the 12% GDP is pharmaceuticals. And if you look at it very deep, and it is proposed that herbal medicines can contribute around 7% CAGR, so the highest potential for the development. And then it is rated that more than 111 billion worth of investment or the profit you can make it out of the investment in the herbal medicine market. So the cosmeceuticals, again, it is one of the growing market, more than 20 CAGR, and then India is the largest exporters of this phytochemicals. The global market in terms of the medicinal herbs also listed. So again, I didn't believe that previous survey. So then I went and looked at one of the recent survey. The recent survey also warrant the growth is going to be around 8.7% with the herbal medicine market, and there is a potential for herbal supplements, medicinal teas, cosmeceuticals, and herbal medicines in upcoming days. So if you wanted to do some research and innovations, you can invest better in here. This is one of the slides that I wanted to emphasize. Even I was surprised by looking at this survey and by looking at the market. Ayurveda dominates the global market in terms of the finished product. So they share the high market size, even with the Chinese medicine. So that is a significant room for us to even further improve and capture that market. But youngsters and those pharmacognoses was I wanted to highlight over here is I got surprised. I received this data because the medicinal plants that I shown over here, they have been projected is going to have a better prosperity than any other phytochemical or any other medicinal plants. So turmeric, ginger, garlic, cinnamon, tea, cranberry, echinacea, coconut. So these are our daily household, but they have a very strong market potential and in terms of the extracts, powders, capsules, and syrups, or as a finished product. So you have potential. If you're interested and if you have a passion, you can still invest a lot in there. So this is my last slide. So it's like if it is if you wanted to worry about what is the scope for pharmacognosy, and this is a high time and for the integration and transformation, I believe there is a strong scope. It is never late for starting anything. Why is so? Because these products are accessible, affordable, and acceptable. There's a progressive societal needs and emerging concerns. There could be a simple innovations, it will have a great impact. There's a lot of government support and motivation is there, and there's opportunity for you to become the entrepreneur, and you can contribute for empowering the nation's health and wealth. So stay believing in, and there's a bright future ahead if you take pharmacognosy or natural product as an option. So last 2 minutes, I just finish up with the portfolio of JSS. Being a research director, it becomes my responsibility to summarize the JSSCP portfolio. So this is our expertise competency mapping. So we have a strong and scientific progressive track record. We collaborate national and global, and then our industry relevance and engagement is very well known. And then we have an adequate and advancing infrastructure for supporting the research. So these are the various departments that conduct research. We have 7 different disciplines. They have a core. Each department has their own expert research area. So they are either work individually or as a team. And we also have the Center of Excellences, 3 centers, TIFACOR, CADRAT, and DTL. We have around 28 PhD guides and guiding more than 120 research scholars right now. This is our PhD program. So we have more than 120 research scholars and around 140 already graduated from us. A significant growth over the last 3 years in terms of the fellowship amount as well as the PhD numbers. Our researchers are gender equivalent and they are very well distributed geographically. More importantly, they all bring a very competitive fellowship, so they take care of themselves. This is some of the listed fellowships. So I'm sure the current COVID condition is very much increasing, but it is more worrying, and I strongly urge everyone to take care of yourself and take up precautionary measures and stay safe and stay progressive. But more worrying thing is at the same time the number of webinars also goes up. Again, I'm sure you must be listening a lot of webinars, so you try sort it out and for your benefits. But why the institutions are doing these webinars, I believe largely this red queen hypothesis. If you're not sure about this red queen, this is a it's evolutionary concept. It is a character in the Alice in Wonderland. So she needs to run very quickly, but she will not move anywhere. So as long as she needs to keep in the same place, she needs to run fast. So I think this sounds appropriate to all institutions. Despite the situation, if you don't keep running, whether you're moving or not moving is a second thing. So you need to continuously productive and continuously resilient so that you remain in a place. So with that note, I thank the management of the pharmacy, Mysuru, and I thank the principal, Dr. Joshi, and I thank the coordinators, Dr. Dinesh and Dr. Kirti for their thank you very much.
First installment ನೀವೇ ಕಟ್ಬೇಕು. ಹೌದು, ಕಟ್ಬಿಟ್ಟು ಒಂದು ಲೆಟರ್ ಕೊಡ್ತೀವಿ. ಇದರ information ಏನಾಗುತ್ತೆ ನೀವು ಅಲ್ಲಿ ಅಪ್ಲೈ ಮಾಡಿ.
Thank you, sir, for your informative session. Sir, we have few questions raised by our participants. We will ask you now. The first one is, what is the role of herbs in our daily life to fight against the infections?
Yeah, I think I have shown a number of examples in the presentation. So if you look at the examples that I've shown from the recent studies, all those phytochemicals, all those remedies are that we encounter in our daily routine. So I strongly encourage, it's like whatever that we believed as immunoboosters, whatever we believed as anti-inflammatory. So maybe I think we need to strongly encourage them to continue that practice.
Next question is, does a herbal product can become an alternative to antibiotics?
Don't think so, because the antibiotics has its own, because in all my presentation I did not discuss any chemotherapy. It is likely that one cannot replace the other, so you need to have, the effort needs to be minimizing the antibiotics. Okay, but definitely I don't think it to be replacing.
Sir, does the herbal drugs are ADR free?
Yeah, sorry, I didn't hear that question properly.
Does the herbal drugs are ADR free?
No, because the herb also contains the phytochemicals. I don't think it will be ADR free. So it is a wrong concept or misconcept out there. So herbals also, if you eat one apple every day, you will be healthy. If you eat 100 apple in one day, so you will also die. So the quantity matters, and the phytochemical is no exceptions for the ADR.
Thank you, sir. Now I call upon Mr. M. Dinesh, Professor, Shagarilas College of Pharmacy, to propose vote of thanks.
Hello, good afternoon, everyone. On behalf of Shadavilas College of Pharmacy and Department of Pharmacognosy and Shadavilas Education Management of Shadavilas Educational Society, Mysuru, I propose a vote of thanks for today's series of webinar. In the present situation of pandemic COVID-19, we have conducting series of webinar. This is the third one with the theme Vocal for Herbal. Evergreen Herbal Solution to Combat Infection Diseases by Dr. Suresh K. Mohan, Kumar, JSSCP. Yes, today we have had a wonderful session by Dr. He has enlightened with wonderful knowledge on pathogenicity of various pandemic diseases, and also he significantly emphasized on biomolecular interaction with phytochemicals on the viral diseases, in combating viral diseases. Thank you, sir. Secondly, thank to our principal is the driving force for all our activities. Is all for his encouragement, motivation, and all endeavors. Thank you, sir. And I extend my thanks to our management team, our president, yes, Parthasarathi, and honorary secretary, encouragement in all our activities. And further, I thank to all delegates for their participation. I also
Voice is not
thank to
clear,
all
Dinesh ji.
of my colleagues for their kind cooperations. My sincere thanks to member of organizing committee on board of board. My special thanks to Mr. Kirti, uh, Mr. Vinay Babu Kola.
It seems to be there some technical problem with him. Since beginning, the voice was not clear. So I will do the final duty, Professor Suresh. Thanks to you for your time, and I could listen major part of your talk today. Many times I miss the talks of many people.
Understand, sir.
And all that. It was very useful and very informative. Very informative. Hope let us meet at the earliest after COVID. And good work by Kirti and team. Good work.
Thank you.
Thanks for
sir.
everything.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for your valuable time. And we'll send the soft copy of the certificate to your mail ID, sir.
Thank you very much. Have a good day.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.